Alright guys, so today I'll be talking about the 2014 Formula 1 Australian Grand Prix that's happening this weekend. It's been such a long time since the last race in 2013 and I just can't wait to get things underway this weekend. But before I get into this video properly, I'd just like to say just to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, if you want to see more F1 related topics and videos like this one in the future. So now that that's out of the way, let's get on to this discussion video about the 2014 Australian Grand Prix. And you know, F1 is going into sort of a new phase or new era, if you will. It's going to be one of the biggest years in terms of rule changes that the sport has ever seen, so it's going to be very interesting. I won't go into the details because you guys will surely know what's going to happen this year in terms of rule changes, so I won't bore you guys with all those changes that are happening. But what I will say is it will shake up the grid massively, and we could see a lot of surprises this year, which will make for, you know, some really good racing and some interesting results. But yeah, it's actually going to make it a lot easier for rookies and new drivers changing teams to really settle into to the racing this year. It's going to sort of even out the field and level out the field, sort of thing, if that makes sense, because everyone is sort of learning the new cars and the new changes and stuff, and it's going to sort of even it up between the drivers. However, I think between the teams you might see a big disparity between, you know, the top teams and the midfield teams and what have you. So that's going to be interesting. There could be a lot of retirements this year. I predict that we may even see something like only 12 cars finishing. That's going to be my prediction. I'd like to see what your guys' prediction is for you know, how many cars are going to finish this weekend. So leave that in the comments, and it'll be interesting to see what everyone else thinks regarding that. And with lots of retirements, there could be the potential for Russia and Caterham to score points this year, even this weekend. So that'd be something amazing. The internet would go crazy, especially if Max Chilton got the first points for one of the back market teams. That would just be crazy. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you think Marussia or Caterham will even score points this year, or even this weekend, to be honest. I'll be interested to see what your guys' thoughts are on that. But yeah, I'll just go through in this video. I'm going to talk about each team briefly and just talk about their prospects this weekend and this year in general. So I'll start off with Mercedes, and in my opinion, I think all the expectation is on Mercedes to win this year, both this weekend and this year, because everyone is bigging them up because they've got these new engines on the new end of the V6s. Mercedes is supposed to be the most powerful and most reliable and what have you. But, you know, it might not turn out that way. Red Bull might bounce back and they might be, you know, even faster than Mercedes with some decent reliability. But we just don't know. I think, you know, Mercedes are surely the favourites to win this year. So, you know, you really can't bet against them this weekend. So I think they'll be very strong as always. Red Bull, they've been fairly quick in pre-season testing, but reliability has been their Achilles heel, and that might be the story of their 2014 season. We'll have to wait and see on that. But as I said before, they've got a big reliability cloud hanging over their heads, and they'll need to sort that out very quickly. You know, Red Bull, they do have a lot of money, a lot of resources, and some really good thinkers and brain power behind them at Red Bull. So I think it's only going to be a matter of time before Red Bull are competitive again. I'm being so negative against Red Bull. I'm sort of fitting in with the crowd here, but you know, I honestly don't think Red Bull are going to be as bad as what people are saying. But you know, if they are bad, and if their reliability troubles are as bad as what people are saying, it's only going to be a short-term thing. I think Red Bull, being such a big team in Formula 1, I really can't see them being out of the picture for too long, and I think they'll bounce back and be at, you know, the front of the field by, you know, the first by Spain, by the first round of you know, major upgrades coming in. I think Red Bull should be back on the pace by then if they aren't already. But moving on to the next team, and that's Ferrari. I think, you know, they'll be fairly consistent this year. I think, you know, Ferrari's got the second best engines of you know, the manufacturers this year, so I think they'll be decent. They're not the best, they're not the worst either, but I think they will be consistent. They've got a really strong driver lineup with Kimi Raikkonen and Fernando Alonso, so they'll be very strong, they'll be very consistent, and I think that you know, if they just put in, you know, decent race performances, race after race, keep finishing races on the podium, then they might surprise a few people and they may end up getting the title this year. At least the Constructors' title, I think they'll be very strong this year. So we'll see how that goes. Moving on to Lotus, and I think, you know, Lotus are in tatters right now. They are very unreliable. They've got money issues. They haven't shown any speed in the pre-season testing, so I don't, you know, see them being very competitive this year. They've got money problems. They've even got driver problems. They had to get, who was it, Pastor Maldonado into the team because they just needed his money just to keep the team alive, I think. But I think Lotus will drop down to a midfield team, sort of like they were in 2011. And, you know, I think they'll sort of have the kind of season that Williams had in 2011 and 2013. I think it might be that bad for them. And I think they'll probably be fighting to score points this year, you know, just on the edges of points sometimes. So it's a bit of a shame, especially for Grosjean, who showed so much promise in the back end of 2013. He showed he really could match up with you know, the best drivers in Formula 1, and I think, you know, it really is a big shame because his career was starting to look very good at that stage. But, you know, you never know, Lotus might bounce back and be competitive again. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But moving on to the next team, and that's Mclaren. You know, they showed some decent pace in pre-season testing. They have solid reliability. They should be challenging for podiums again this year. They had that torrid season in 2013, so I don't think they'll have a season as bad as that. That was just a freak of nature season for McLaren, and I don't think it'll be that bad again. But, you know, hopefully this year they can bounce back, get a few wins. Kevin Magnussen, he's a very promising driver. He could surprise a few people this year. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But overall, I hope McLaren is very competitive this year. They really deserve to be right at the front of the field. They've been so competitive for such a long period of time, and to see them be as uncompetitive as they were in 2013, it was a real shame. So hopefully they can bounce back strong in 2014. Now moving on to the next team, and that's Williams. They look to be a team that's on the rise, to be honest. They've signed Felipe Massa for this season. I really hope that he can bounce back and sort of, you know, climb out of Alonso's shadow and really show that he is a top-level driver. Like, he does have a lot of doubters, and I think that now that he's broken out of Ferrari, he's got that team support around him. He's got Williams. He's going to be their main driver, so he's got just as much chance as anyone to be competitive. So I'm looking forward to what he can do. Williams, in the off-season break, they've beefed up their engineering team. So you never know with them. They could be a team to watch this year. They could even get a few podiums this year, or maybe even a potential race win. We'll have to wait and see on that one. But moving on to the next team, and that's Force India. And again, Force India, they're another midfield team that looks to be pretty promising, and they look like they're a team on the rise. So I'm looking forward to what they can do this year. They put a lot of focus into developing this year's car. They've got two strong drivers in Sergio Perez and Nico Hulkenberg. They're both solid, they're in form, and I think they could challenge for the podium positions a few times this year, depending on how their races go. You never know with reliability either. They could be right up there to challenge when people fall by the wayside. But, you know, I think, you know, Force India, they've got the Mercedes engines. They're a good engine, and it could be, you know, Force India's best year yet. So moving on to the next team, and that's Toro Rosso. I think they'll be about the same as they were last year. They've now got the Renault engine, which may hold them back and may slow them down a little bit with development. They've got to sort of get used to that engine and how it all works and everything, so that might slow them down a little bit. They've got that rookie Daniel Kvyat, that Russian. Not too sure how he's going to go. He's obviously not as good as probably what Jean-Eric Vergne is. He has experience, so I think he's probably their only chance of getting points this year. They will score points every so often, but it might be a little bit tougher to get the points this year with how close the field might be this year. But, you know, you never know with Toro Rosso. They might be okay, and they might score a few decent points this season. Now, moving on to Sauber. They've had a pretty tough pre-season, to be honest. Pace-wise, I think they'll still be about the same as what they were last year. They probably will be fighting for, like, the back end of the top 10 in terms of points finishes. They've signed up Adrian Sutil for this season, so it's a good signing for them. He will be solid, and he'll help with the development of the car a little bit, so Sauber will really enjoy his experience. But, you know, I can't really see them moving any further forward than what they were last year, to be honest. But, Now we're going to talk about the final two teams on the grid, and that's Caterham and Russia. Starting off with Caterham though, and they've been fairly reliable so far in pre-season testing. However, their Achilles heel has been pace. They've even been up to a second and a half slower than Russia the final test at Bahrain, so that's going to be pretty worrying for them. But on the plus side, they have signed Kamui Kobayashi for this season, and he's going to be a massive asset to the team in terms of car development and just setup work. So that's going to be a massive help to them. We'll see how they go in the course of this season, but to be honest, I can't really see them scoring any points alongside Marussia, who have been a little bit quicker this season. They've shown that they are a little bit closer to the midfield this year, so I think their season is looking a bit more promising. However, reliability has been a problem for Marussia, and they'll need to sort that out if they want to finish the race in Melbourne. But Marussia, they should be aiming for a top 15 finish in Melbourne, even with the retirements that are going to be happening. If they can just get to the finish, I think a top 15 finish is almost guaranteed for them. So we'll see how that goes. But that pretty much wraps up the teams, or all the teams on the grid for the 2014 season. And I'll go through now my top 10 prediction for Melbourne. But don't be offended if I don't mention your favourite driver here, because there's only 10 spots I can predict, and there's so many drivers who could potentially score points this weekend. So starting off, we've got Sebastian Vettel. I think he's going to get pole position this weekend. I don't think Red Bull have entirely showed their hand in terms of one-lap pace, so I think Vettel will be very quick in qualifying. However, the race may be a different story. But in terms of the race, I think Lewis Hamilton will claim victory in the first race in Melbourne. I think he's riding a massive wave of confidence with the new rule changes and the way his car has performed in pre-season testing. I think Fernando Alonso will get second place, with Nico Rosberg in third. In fourth place, I've got Sebastian Vettel, who I think might be managing some issues later on in the race. In fifth place, Kimi Raikkonen. Sixth, Jenson Button. Seventh, Felipe Massa, who I really wanted to put higher, but I couldn't really find a spot for him. In 8th place, I've got Kevin Magnussen. 9th place, Nico Hulkenberg. And in 10th, I've got Sergio Perez. So there's so many drivers that I really wanted to put in that top 10 list, but I just couldn't fit them in. There's just so many drivers and so many scenarios that could happen this weekend that it's just so very hard to predict. And I've pretty much gone for a conservative bet there. I think that only half of those guys that I've mentioned there will finish the race. So we'll see how that goes. But that's pretty much been this discussion video for Melbourne. The first couple of races could be an absolute lottery. Pre-season testing only showed who was reliable, and we don't really have any indication on who's going to be quick. But it's going to be an absolute lottery, as I said before. We still don't know who's going to be good at managing their tyres. The Pirelli tyres are supposed to be a bit more durable this season, so it may allow for better racing, for drivers to push harder throughout a race stint, which may favour Hamilton. We'll see how that goes, but managing the fuel is also going to be a big factor this year, with low aero and more power in the engine. So that's going to be very interesting to see how the drivers and teams manage that over the course of a race and season. It's going to be probably one of the best seasons yet in Formula 1 history, so I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully the racing is good this weekend, but either way, I'm sure there's going to be some massive surprises come the end of the race on Sunday afternoon, so I'm very much looking forward to it. I hope you guys are too. So let me know what your top 3 predictions are for this weekend in the comments section. If I haven't mentioned already, big shout out to Renewable Buttons, who provided the gameplay in this video. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, to see more Formula 1 videos like this in the future. But yeah, that's been pretty much it for this video. Until my next one, guys, I'll see you next time.